Okay. So, welcome back, peoples that watch this. I'm Justin. That's
And
Gerard.
I'm Gerard.
Yes, that is Gerard. And we are doing this podcast thing called The Victoria's Secret. You are either watching or listening to that right now. And I'm going to let Gerard tell you what we're talking about today.
This is episode 2. We recorded episode 1 last week. We are on episode 2, and this week we're talking about voting.
Talking about voting, we were talking about politics and all types of fun stuff like that, but we're not going to get like super political because I haven't convinced Gerard to do that yet. So, what do we start with? Should we start with we're going to talk about two main interesting topics. We're going to talk about gerrymandering. We're going to talk about like more specifically like voting and different ways that voting works and stuff like that. So, what do you want to start with?
Well, maybe we should start with like a more general topic of voting, and then
let's just like talk about how it works. So, if you're watching this anywhere close to the time that we recorded it, you should probably know that we just had midterm elections a couple days ago, and Veterans Day is a couple days away. So that's kind of why we chose this topic for this week. And people have been all over everything about these midterms. I don't know if this was just more hectic than it ever has been before, or if I'm just like growing up and actually paying attention to what's going on.
I have news reporters open my shower curtain while I'm showering and tell me about the midterms.
Yeah, like seriously, like just like showering and someone opens the curtain, they're like, "Oh, vote for Pedro."
Like, oh.
Yeah, that's almost seemed that way. You know, we had all this talk of the blue wave and all that fun stuff, and you know, obviously politics is a very, very fun time right now. Gerard, did you vote? You didn't. Wait, did you vote?
No, I didn't vote. But that's not because I was like being ignorant of it. It's because the place where I vote is a little bit out of my way, and I had work very, very soon, and I didn't inform myself as much as I wanted to on who I was voting for. So there were a couple things that were just like in the way, inconvenient. And I know it's not like an excuse, especially for people who are like, voice your vote, you know. But I'll just vote next time.
Well, Gerard's a bad influence. All y'all should be voting.
I am.
That's the lesson of the day. Find a way to do it.
We'll get informed and then vote.
Yeah, we do both. I mean,
because a lot of people that I didn't like were what I didn't like that a lot of people were pushing was just get out and vote. They didn't say get informed and get out and vote. They just said get out and vote.
Yeah, people do
which
do
isn't
that.
Smart.
Unfortunately, people do have no idea what's going on around them, and they're still allowed to vote, and they still go and they vote, and that's the thing you hear all the time is like, oh, that person votes. You know, that's kind of the joke when you see really stupid people on the internet.
Yeah, that's right. Like no matter what like party you lean towards, like just learn and then vote instead of just vote. Yeah. That's why I didn't vote, was because I wasn't learned.
Right. And that brings us into the whole conversation of the party system. A lot of people are saying that just sucks now too. Like, I don't know. What are your thoughts on the party system? Do you think it should exist? It shouldn't exist? We need more parties, less parties. It's tearing us apart. It's pulling us together.
Okay, I hear the argument once in a while that we need to change to like a 3-party system, or something different. But a 1-party system and a 3-party system won't work. The 1-party system won't work because, as you know, there's one party in control with one opinion, and that's kind of called a monarchy or something like that, where there's a king in charge, a dictatorship, something like that. 3 parties won't work because with just 2 parties, the country's split 50-50, but with 3 parties, the country will be split even more. So an even smaller percentage, whatever party gets
33.
Yeah, whatever party gets elected,
it'll fuck the majority.
There'll be an even smaller portion of Americans that actually want that person.
Right. So it'll get rid of the majority thing, and that's actually something I'm going to talk about when we get into the ranked choice voting thing later. Is that we do have a system for these midterms, where like some people are getting elected when they get like 38% of the vote. That's really weird because it's like, it's like 62% of people don't want you, and you're
It's
still
kinda
winning.
odd.
So that's kind of the way our system is put up. That's talking about if we were to do a three. I don't know if people tell you this, but if we were to do a three-party system, like what would the third party be?
That's a good
Like
question.
would it kind of be like people say they're in the middle, right? And there's like the libertarians and the Green Party. We do have those,
Yeah.
but like, so I feel like some people say they're in the middle because they agree with both sides, and then some people that say they're in the middle disagree with both sides. Well, I mean, I guess I just said the same thing twice, but you know what I mean? It's like some people consider
Yeah.
themselves on both sides. Some people consider themselves on neither side. Like there's two different ways of looking at
Yeah, that's right.
not being on a side.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I think it's just weird.
They're purple.
Yeah, they're purple, or they're just, like white,
Yeah.
transparent. Like
Let's not say they're white.
the white party. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We'll call it transparent.
Let's not call it that.
but the absence of color party. But yeah. Anyway, the orange party, like that guy sitting right next to you. Okay. So yeah, I don't know how I feel about the party system myself. Like, I think I don't mind the party system. I don't mind the parties. It's just, I do think it's starting to get out of hand where we just label people based on the party they're in, and we just start assuming so much about a person because they're a Democrat or because they're a Republican or they're a liberal or whatever the case may be.
Absolutely right.
So it's like so many people now just hear that and they think, well, right from the get-go, it's like, oh, you're this party? I don't like you. Like,
yeah, like you didn't even meet me, bro.
Get over it, like seriously.
I could be a nice person, I could be a mean person, but
you
just ruled me out as a mean person.
I have my opinions. I'll subtly voice them all the time. I'm honestly not going to be the kind of guy on this podcast that's like, oh, I don't want to say what I mean, because I don't want to rouse people up. That's what makes you popular. But yeah, so the parties are messed up. Well, they're not really messed up. We're just trying to make them messed up. And
although I did hear that, like the founders, like kind of devised the system to have gridlock where it was tough to get things done. I mean, they probably didn't imagine it to this. They didn't imagine it to this degree, but
right.
Like,
I think it's not get things done. I think it was just like checks and balances and.
Well, not get things done, but not be able to pass silly laws. So it's devised in a way so that the important stuff really shows.
Like a filter.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's really why they came up with the parties. I'm not really a buff on that kind of thing. I just
I'm kind of a moron, actually.
1% of what they tell me in my history classes and law classes and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, whatever you hear from me today is just what I learned from school and like me pulling stuff out of my rear, pretty much.
Okay, so that's pretty cool. So, yeah, my final thoughts on the party is like, don't judge people based on the party that they're a part of. And if you ask me, don't be afraid to say what party you are. Like, people try to avoid political conversation all the time, and I think that's a huge part of the problem.
Yeah,
is that we don't talk about it because we're like afraid of not getting along with people. It's like,
or we don't talk about it without like throwing
disagree.
objects at one another.
Yeah. So, okay, there's that. So, let's get into the gerrymandering. That's a fun topic that always comes up when you're talking about elections and voting.
That's almost my name.
Almost.
Kinda.
Gerrymandering.
Yeah.
Gerrymandering. Okay, so what do you know about gerrymandering? I'm delegating that
intro
to conversation to you.
I know that gerrymandering is where your state, the area you live, is separated into voting districts.
Yes.
Well, people behind the scenes can kind of change the voting districts around into different puzzle pieces on your map. And
like however they want to.
However they want.
Weird.
However
like
big, small, this place.
There are literally no rules to how they do it.
Yeah. And if a person thinks about it, some places have more of a certain kind of people than other. Some people, like in a certain area, might vote more Democratic. Certain area might vote more Republican. And if you make this area over here really big and it encompasses a bunch of, I don't know, like Republicans, for example, I don't know, just for the example.
Team.
Yeah, a lot of the red team over here, it easily skews the results of voting in different areas.
Right, because we don't use we use a popular vote to an extent, but it's like we go based on, what this district won this way, this district won that way. It's not really just like take everybody and just pick the majority.
Yeah.
Like we separate it. So that's how the districts.
We break it down into the districts.
Yes, we do. And like you said, they can just draw those districts however they want to. Literally however they want to. And who draws that?
I don't know.
Whoever controls the House, I'm pretty sure. I keep learning this, and I should really know. But yeah, so it's usually whichever party's already controlling will draw it. So like if the Republicans have the House, they're going to draw it.
And that's interesting.
That's how it works. So that's why I don't know. I don't see how it makes sense that gerrymandering actually affects anyone, because like the control keeps flipping. So it's like if they are gerrymandering, they're not doing a very good job at it. Otherwise,
because the other party keeps getting.
Otherwise, we probably would have just
goes back and forth because this is a divided era.
Like a deadline. So gerrymandering does not just completely dismantle the system, and some people act like it does, and it doesn't. Obviously.
Yeah, it just messes it up a little bit.
Things still happen. It's just people using their best attempt to win. So, yeah, there's that. So,
well, they used to do it a lot with back in back when African Americans were just beginning to vote. Didn't they kind of use gerrymandering to keep their vote not as important as like the whites, I guess you could call it?
I don't think they used gerrymandering for that. I think they did try to do that. That was the thing. I don't think gerrymandering.
There were a couple. I remember learning there were a couple of methods that people used to keep black people from voting.
Like I know, like land ownership, for example, they were just like, oh, black people can vote, but you have to own this amount of land in order to vote.
That's right. Yeah, I remember
black people didn't really own land, so it was like. It was like indirectly telling you can't vote.
Still,
and even today, you can argue that we still do that a little bit. Like, I don't agree with it when people say it, but like we have laws regarding like you need to have a driver's license to vote or some form of ID to vote, and in certain scenarios, blacks or any immigrants that are coming into the country, like it's harder for them to get a hold of driver's licenses. So you could get into a whole debate on that.
Yeah, and what's interesting is someone at work the other night who I was talking with, they're talking about how a certain reservation of Native Americans in, I think it was I forget where they are. It's like North Dakota or something, maybe South Dakota, somewhere in there. I'm a moron on this, but anyway. But apparently the reservation that they're on doesn't have like a street address, of course. But apparently you need a street address or something for voting, so they couldn't vote. But that's I don't know, they're citizens. So
there are a lot of weird reasons to not be able to vote. I've even overheard people just on campus here, on election day, people were going around like, oh, hey, did you vote? Oh, hey, did you vote? And I heard
a bunch of numbskulls.
I heard a bunch of people being like, no, I can't, and I was like, why?
Yeah, that's interesting.
I got very
I'm really curious about that.
But we're talking about that. We were talking about Native Americans a lot in one of my classes the other day too. Listened to a whole podcast on it, but I wasn't really paying that close of attention. It didn't have to do much with voting, just on how basically when we came in, a couple hundred years ago, and we're like, hey, we're not gonna kick you out of your land, and then right after that we're like, guess what?
Kick you out of your land. By the way, just like every other civilization did to every other civilization on Earth. Not saying that it's right, but every
works.
civilization did it.
That's how it worked.
Well, and I'm
put
not sympathetic. I'm very sympathetic to people who got killed, got kicked off their land. That's not good. Like that's not good. But it's not the first time it's been done by a long shot.
Yeah.
And they did fight back. Like, we've been fighting with the Native Americans for hundreds of years. It's not that they weren't totally defenseless. They were very, very good fighters. The what do you call it? The Europeans just ended up winning.
What did you call it?
Yeah.
but no, yeah, I've got a point. I was like, I'm gonna drive home a point that I'm gonna try to drive home throughout episodes of this podcast, whether we're talking about history or voting or whatever we're talking about. It's like people have to. There's a difference between what does happen and what should happen, and you have to learn to accept that. You really do. That's my point. That's my message of the day that I'm gonna try to drive home, is that you have to realize there's a difference between reality and whatever beautiful unicorn land sugar-coated form of reality is happening in your head is not reality.
Yeah, that's right.
So let's.
And
okay.
And by the way, neither of us are historical experts either.
Oh,
so
yeah,
if you like know about history and you disagree, and
like,
you know for real, tell us. Like,
yeah,
seriously,
tell us,
because we're just talking about, we're just shooting the breeze.
We're open to criticism, and we're doing this so that we can share our knowledge with you people, but then also so that you people can teach us stuff. Like, we're not super.
Yeah, this is not a one-way thing. This is back and forth.
We're both not very egotistical. I can tell you that for sure. So
yeah,
tell us if we're wrong. Seriously, I want you to, because that's how you learn things. Okay, so getting back to the gerrymandering, there was a governor in Massachusetts.
It's a governor in every state, actually.
There was a governor in Massachusetts in 1812. I like this. We just said that we don't know what we're talking about with history. So now let me explain to you the history that I don't know what I'm talking about. Named Elbridge. I don't know if it's pronounced Gary or Jerry, but we pronounce it Jerry in gerrymandering, so I'm going to go with Jerry. And he was essentially like the one that did this, and then people noticed, and he redrew the lines to look like what he wanted them to look like.
Yeah.
And someone was like, yo, hey, look at this map. That looks kind of like a salamander. And that's where the term gerrymandering came from. The more you know.
That's cool.
But
I always thought it sounded like salamander.
Yeah, well, it does. It does for a reason. So that's where that came from. And another interesting thing I learned that I was talking to Gerard a little bit about before we hit the little record button is that originally Jerry Elbridge over there wasn't cool enough to have it named after him. Originally, they would just put the mander suffix on the end of anybody's name who did it. So they had like Henry Mandering, and they had Perry Mandering, and they had Tully Mandering, and all things of the sort. But eventually they were like, wow, those just don't ring the same way. So we're going to call this gerrymandering. That is the name of the topic. Or the tactic. Not
yeah,
the top.
I got you, man.
But, yeah. So there's that. And so that's the name history of it. That's the unimportant stuff.
Yeah.
Now here's the nitty-gritty. I looked a little bit into the gerrymandering tactics that are actually used. There are actual tactics. There are 4 tactics, or at least 4 that I found. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Because people think, like, Gerard, explain again really quickly, like, your knowledge of gerrymandering, like the basic scratch the surface knowledge of gerrymandering that like everybody kind of understands.
Okay, I know very, very little about it, but here we go. You have a state, whatever shape it is, and then within that state you have little puzzle pieces, which are districts, counties, but not actually counties. They're just set up differently.
they're just districts.
Yeah, they're puzzle pieces, and those puzzle pieces are counted for votes. But then you can divide the puzzle pieces any way you want, make certain ones bigger, certain ones smaller, to kind of fit your fit your needs so that certain areas count more than others, and it's kind of, dishonest.
Right. So very basically, what gerrymandering is, if it still hasn't like stuck to your brain, gerrymandering on a very basic level is your state is separated into districts, and the government, more specifically, whoever controls the House, can draw the lines whatever way they will. Like the districts aren't like squares. They're not like, there's really no rhyme or reason to the way they do it. They just draw the lines however they want to.
Yeah.
And they now they have like super smart nerdy people and softwares and algorithms nowadays that they can use to like say like, okay, which way is going to be the best to get me to win, and then it still never works. But like,
yeah,
that's the funny thing. But there's a lot more than to just like, oh, I'm gonna draw the line this way, or I'm gonna draw the line that way. Actually, let me now would be a good time to show the picture that I have. So
yay, pictures.
Figure out how to do that real quick. Okay. Oh shit. Oh, okay. So I'm sorry if you're listening to this in the audio version.
Yeah, you're not gonna be able to see the pictures, but you could. But the cool thing is, you can Google them yourself.
You can, or you can just go on YouTube and watch the video version of this. Okay, so is my picture up there, Gerard?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, so this is kind of like the most helpful infographic I've found to explain how gerrymandering works. So let's say, over here, I mean, you can read it for yourself. I'm assuming. I don't know what. Okay. Anyway, so you got like your reds and your blues here, and clearly there are more blues than reds.
It says 60% blue, 40% red.
Right.
In a big
exactly.
block.
So then they're like, if we split it right into 5 districts evenly, like normal people would, then it would be the blue would just control and blue would win, right? And even if we did it like, can you see my little mouse there?
I can.
Like if we did it this way, like if we drew these lines vertically, you'd have, you'd end up with 3 blue districts and 2 red districts, so it would be closer, but blue would still win.
That's
so this one over here is what gerrymandering is. It's like drawing really weird lines to make things work out.
Yeah, it looks like Tetris.
So yeah, it does look like Tetris. So like you see here, you've got this district is controlled by the blue.
Because there's one red square in that piece.
But then this one, and this one are all red. If you do this the really weird way.
Yeah.
So that's basic what gerrymandering is, kind of stuff. So let me try to pull the screen back away here.
Yeah, just give us a minute.
Okay, so that's how it works.
Okay.
I want to share my screen.
There we go.
Okay, so that's how it works. That's the basic of how it works. But there are obviously different tactics. It's like knowing how to play chess. Like you can know how to play, but then you can like really know how to play.
Yeah.
So here's gerrymandering. Here's kind of the logic behind how it works. The first tactic is called cracking. Woo! Just like my voice did when I said that.
That was almost like a weird kind of onomatopoeia where it's like different than onomatopoeia, but it's still kind of the same thing.
It's very serendipitous voice crack. Okay.
Serendipitous. There we go.
Yeah. The first tactic is called cracking. So cracking is spreading one type of voter. So let's just say the blue people. Okay, it's just like taking the blue people and kind of like sprinkling them across different districts in order to avoid having like blocks of blue people voting together and just like kind of really like coming in and just like being like punching the red people in the mouth and being like, no, you have no chance.
Yeah, that's right.
It's like cracking is spreading them out across all of the districts so that there's kind of that's actually kind of trying to make it fair. That's another thing with gerrymandering is that everyone's just like, oh, this is just to give an unfair advantage. In a certain sense, you can also gerrymander.
They actually use it to make it more fair.
To make it more fair. Like you can do that. That's totally possible to do.
Mm-hmm.
So that's cracking, spread them out, and make it a little bit more fair.
Yeah,
now,
sprinkling them.
On the flip side, yes. So, okay. So then we have packing. Packing is kind of the pull to the pull, the push and the pull. Cracking and packing. Packing is kind of the pull. Packing is taking a district you already know is going to sway one way. So let's say we have a district that we know is going to be red.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Packing is just drawing the lines to try and fit as many red people in there as you possibly can, because you already know it's a lost cause. You already know it's going to be that color. So you put as many of them in there, so that way you're still only losing the one district.
That's right, yeah.
So that's packing. That's packing is trying to just get all voters of one type together so that they don't have an influence on the other districts. Okay, so those are like the two main thought of tactics used for gerrymandering and the way that gerrymandering.
Well, and you could even apply that even further, where if you already know a certain area is going to pretty much go red, but then like kind of around it, like they might get a little blue. Like you can pack all the reds into one area, and the others around it are guaranteed to be blue. Yeah.
So those are the redrawing tactics, basically. The other two are actually, well, it does have to do with redrawing, but it doesn't really have to do with the voters so much as it has to do with the candidates. The second two. So here's a whole new approach to gerrymandering that you probably never heard of before. So we did cracking, which is spreading them out. We did packing, which is trying to get as many of them into one area as we can. There's the third one is hijacking. Cracking, packing, and hijacking.
Do they intentionally rhyme these? I guess they must.
Oh, no, it's like one of those schemes where like the last one's not gonna rhyme.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
It's like you see those TV shows with like 4 kids and like 3, like do you remember like Nicky, Ricky, Dicky, and Don?
Yeah.
It's
or like
that.
Meeny, Meeny, Miny, Mo.
Yeah,
Pinky, Pinky, Sue. Yeah, I got it. Or Clyde, depending on what game you're playing.
Exactly. So it's exactly like that. It's the first 3 rhyme, the last one's just.
Yeah. But okay. All right.
Okay. Anyway, get back to it. So we've got hijacking. Hijacking is kind of a different approach. Hijacking is redrawing the districts in a way so that you're putting 2 candidates to run in the same district in order to guarantee that one of them loses.
Wait, hold on. Okay, say that again.
So hijacking is when they redraw the districts not based on the voters, right?
Yeah.
That's nothing to do with the voters. What they do is that they redraw the districts for the candidates, like the candidate's home address, wherever it is. They draw it like around their addresses so that both candidates get into the same district. So then they have to run against each other, and one of them has to get eliminated.
Yeah.
So it's a way to make sure that like two candidates don't both win. That's what hijacking, and that one's really cool. And then the last one is called kidnapping, which is the pull to hijacking. Kidnapping, what they do is that they will change an incumbent's address to a new district to suppress the chance of them getting reelected. So they'll take someone that won an election for the past million years.
Yeah, John Winner.
In a certain that's his name. They'll take John Winner, who's just like a super, like the Reds love him, right? And he's been in the red district his whole life, so he just keeps getting reelected. But then one election they decide like, hey, John Winner, we're gonna go put you in a blue district, and then he's like, oh shit.
Okay.
Like,
right.
So they do that to try and kind of mix things up and make it so that people don't keep getting reelected, which goes back to a form of gerrymandering that can be used to try to make things more fair rather than less fair.
Yeah.
But those are 4 of the gerrymandering tactics. So I hope you learned something new when I was talking about all that, because
I did. That's interesting. I didn't know there were different types.
Like a half-assed job of trying to figure all that out.
Yeah,
so
cool.
Yeah, there's all that. And those are the 4 tactics. So yeah, it's more than just like, oh, let's draw the line. Let's draw a dinosaur this year. Like, they do like tactically think about it and strategically do their gerrymandering.
Yeah, that's right. And why wouldn't they? It's more advantageous. It's more fair in some cases. Yeah.
It's more fair. It's less fair. Whatever. It's like a whole big mess. Like you could probably, like, if you really tried to, make like a bachelor's degree in gerrymandering.
Oh, probably.
Like 4 years worth of college courses on it. Because it's just like, it started, back with that 1812, I believe, with Elbridge, Gary, whatever his name was pronounced. And like at that point, it wasn't as bad because there was like, less people. And
that's right. There were a lot less people.
That's pre-Civil War, so that's like before the parties really got out of hands with each other. Everybody's just kind of like, oh, okay, this is a thing that they're doing. But nowadays, there's a lot more people. There's a lot more opinions, weirdly enough, when we talk about having 3 or 4 parties. There's just a lot more everything. Things have changed a little bit. The House of Representatives doesn't work quite the same way that it did when they like made it.
Well, really, all the
Well,
all
everything.
the different
yeah.
areas of government. Or, you know,
Yeah.
government, yeah.
You know, they all
But yeah,
like this isn't what the founding fathers intended. I think the founding fathers were smart enough to realize that things weren't going to stay exactly like that.
yeah. They're
For
like,
the
things are
next-
gonna stay exactly the same in 200 years.
You know, like. But yeah, that's all that. That's just another interesting thing. The last thing I wrote down about gerrymandering is the prison-based gerrymandering. I'm not gonna lie, I don't really get this, but there is a thing called prison-based gerrymandering.
And I have no idea what this is, but go ahead.
Yes. It is counting prisoners as residents in the district of the prison that they're in. So I guess it kind of just gives an unfair advantage or disadvantage to districts that have prisons in them.
Yeah. So the
Stop.
way that I understood it was that people in prison couldn't vote. I didn't think they could vote.
I really don't know if that's true. I feel like they can.
Or they
it
might be able
depends.
to, but I don't know.
It depends on the crime.
Mm-hmm.
But like,
Maybe it depends
Yeah.
on if the area is prison gerrymandered to do so. I don't know.
like, draw the line right down the middle of the prison.
Yeah, there we go.
like, yeah, I don't really fully understand the point of that, but basically doing that messes with. First of all, it messes with the populations, right? Because like, if I go to like a state prison that's not in my district, then that's going to be one less voter
Yeah.
of a certain side in
Multiply
my
that.
district, and
Yeah.
then one more
else
in
it
that
goes.
district. So that's kind of a way of like throwing voters like across
Mhm.
district lines. And like, I don't know, I feel like I didn't actually look this up. I don't know if this happens, but I can only imagine people like get arrested on purpose just to go and like vote in a district. Or, I don't know. People
Ooh,
do some weird
That's
shit.
dirty. That's
So,
interesting.
like, but yeah. So all sorts of things can happen.
That's some rogue stuff.
And I kind of like to think that maybe it just balances out. Maybe. With
In
all
a
the
weird,
things that go
hopeful,
on.
optimistic way.
Yeah. But yes, that is my spiel on gerrymandering.
That was
and how it
kinda-
works. By the by, you're listening to a podcast right now. If you go and look up like a number of podcasts, they probably did an episode on gerrymandering, especially if it has anything to do with law or history, because I've listened to like a couple podcasts on gerrymandering now. So go and listen to those podcasts too. The best one, in my opinion, I started listening to this podcast called Stuff You Should Know, which is presented by HowStuffWorks.com, and they did one on gerrymandering, and they also did one on ranked choice voting, which we're about to talk about in like 2 minutes. And they explain it. I don't want to say better, but it is better. And, you know, they might just touch on some things that we didn't. So if you like learning things, go listen to Stuff You Should Know. They're really awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. So should we move on to ranked choice voting?
Yeah, but let's do it quick.
Let's do it quick.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't think I have as much to talk about ranked choice voting, but it's just like, you ever see those people on Facebook now, or well, on all social media now, that kind of complain about like the wasted votes that they have?
Oh, yeah.
Like how many times in whatever that word is of this election, in light of this election happening, did you see someone that's a libertarian complaining that they can't vote for the candidate they want because they know they're not going to win?
Oh yeah, for libertarians who are in the minority party, for people like say, like I don't know, like Republicans for example in California,
Right.
because California sways to the blue, like they're like, oh my vote doesn't matter. Yeah, so you see it, you see it in a couple different forms.
I'm not.
And I
lie,
have seen it in a couple different forms.
That just irks me when those people that are like in the middle are like going off on a rampage about how they had to vote for someone that they didn't want to, because otherwise they're just wasting their vote, and like, you know, they play that.
If they all voted for that.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's exactly where I'm going with this. If all of you that are on Twitter complaining about how your vote wouldn't count if you voted in the middle, if every single one of you voted in the middle,
the percentage would be higher.
Something might happen. Oh my gosh.
That's pretty awesome.
I think I made like an angry tweet about that the other day. By the way, Follow me on Twitter at JJustinRP. Follow me on Instagram at JustinRP56. Facebook is the same thing. Gerard also has a lot of cool art stuff that I don't know if he wants to get into. We have a website. It's justinrp.com/TVS, which stands for the Victoria's Secret. We have all of our links on there and that kind of thing. And you can sign up for our little email newsletter and all that fun stuff. So go to justinrp.com/TVS. There. Now I got that out of the way.
Do it. Yeah.
Okay. So here's one of the things that I've seen in the news since the election. What if we change the system from what we have, whatever, I don't really know what we call the voting we have. It's just like bicameral, you get two choices and you go vote for one or the other. That's what. But what if instead we moved to ranked choice voting?
And you said that occurs in other countries, correct?
It does. I don't think it occurs a lot. I think Australia is the big one that does it.
Okay.
Again, Stuff You Should Know has a podcast on this. That's basically where I learned a whole bunch of stuff. But Australia does, and like a couple other like little countries that nobody ever talks about. But some of them have it. I don't really know how it works out for them. I'm guessing well, not that well. But I thought it was a very interesting thing to bring up, whether or not we should vote. Okay, because here's where this comes from. In Maine, I think Maine in the United States commonly has this issue in one of their districts where like whoever wins the election is getting like 35, 36, 37% of the vote. So we have a system where we get to vote for one person. And that's it. That's all we do. We just go and we pick the person we want. And then if there's like more than two people running for the same position, you get in that weird, like why you said a three-party system would work. You get that weird thing where there's no majority. And you're
the more parties you add on, the smaller the percentages are going to be.
Exactly. So that's where this ranked choice thing comes in. So if you don't know what ranked choice voting means, or what I mean when I say that, is that you would go in basically, and let's say you have four candidates for a position, right? You have candidate A, B, C, and D. We'll just call them, right?
Sure.
You would pick three of them. Let's say, I don't know if the number of them you pick really, I don't think you would do all of them, but let's say you pick 3 out of 4. Okay, you pick who you want to win. If they don't win, you pick a second choice and you pick a third choice. That's how the ranked choice voting system would work. And that's to try and eliminate putting someone in office that just nobody voted for and that nobody wanted there. Do you have thoughts on that? Yeah.
No, I mean, on the surface, without actually delving too deep into it, the initial thoughts are that's very interesting, and I'd be very curious to learn more about possibly implementing it. On the surface, I don't actually know.
Right. So because that's supposed to just eliminate. It's supposed to make sure that someone with some form of a majority wins. So I know that when I first listened to this, I was very confused about how counting the votes actually works.
Yeah.
When you do ranked choice voting. So I'm gonna break that down real quick and then we'll start wrapping it up. But it's very confusing. Me saying it is not gonna help a lot if you don't have a visual. If you just type it into Google real quick, this really cool video from Minnesota Public Radio or something has a video with these sticky notes. That makes it a lot easier to explain, but I'm gonna try to explain it right now. So first of all, how this works is you do the ranked choice voting, right?
Yeah.
And then you take everybody's ballot. And first what you would do is count just the first choice of everybody's ballot. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And then, so you select just the first choice of the ballot. And then let me try to pull up the other picture while I'm explaining this, because that's kind of what it explains.
Okay.
But, yeah, you do all the first choices first. And then if someone, in the first choice already holds, is the screen up there?
Yeah, it's up here.
If someone okay, so you count the voters' first choice ballots, and if one of the candidates holds 50 plus 1%, just over 50%, if they already have the majority,
right,
then you just stop there. The rest of the rankings don't count. He's the winner.
Greater than half.
Because he got the majority, right? Now, if nobody on the first choice line, this is where it gets confusing. If nobody already has the majority, okay, let's say winner or candidate B got 35%, and then C and D got something else, and
Yeah,
A
right.
just absolutely lost, then what you would do is that you would take A out of the picture. Okay, you take whoever came in last place
Out.
out of it, and you would take all the ballots where they were the first choice, and you would count their second choice and
Mhm.
put it back into the system. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
So
So
like,
every time there might be like one person fewer, and
right, basically. So like, yeah. So like,
even
let's
lower.
right,
I'm lower people to choose from.
right, basically. So basically, you just keep repeating this process on the screen here until you get someone that has a majority, until you get down to 2 candidates, and one of them has to have more than 50% at that point. So let's just say, just to make the numbers easy, like you do the first round, candidate A loses, comes in dead last, right?
Yeah,
So you'd
right.
go to the
Okay.
you'd go to the second choice of all the candidate A ballots, and let's say there were 5 ballots, 3 of them, or like 3 of them, their second choice was B, one of them was C, one of them was D. So then you'd like redistribute those votes and add them on to those candidates. And then if
Oh.
someone has the majority,
Mhm.
you're done. If they're still known with the majority, you do the same
Then you
thing.
take it down a level more.
Take it down a level more, and then you would say, okay, now we have to take all these choices. And if you're already on their second choice, move to their third. If you're still on their first, move to the second, whatever. And then
Yeah.
just redistribute their next choice up in, and you just kind of keep doing that until someone has the majority. That's how ranked choice voting works. And that's how they do it, so that like everybody at least likes the candidate that gets chosen, I guess, even if they don't love them. It's like
They at least like kind of like them.
Like if like, well, I mean, let's just take the obvious example of what happens in our country right now. Everybody hates our president, and that kind of doesn't make sense because he somehow wound up being the president.
Yeah, somehow
But,
half voted for him. Or,
but like, let's just say you have someone like Donald Trump, not Donald Trump, but just someone that's running that like
that's similar to him. Yeah.
a good 40% of people really like him, but the other 60% absolutely hate the dude or woman, whoever's running.
Yeah, could be one.
And but like those 40%, in the system we have would be enough to get that person into office. But it wouldn't be enough if you were doing ranked choice voting, right? Because if you were doing ranked choice voting, you take those other 60% of people's votes, okay, whatever percent of those 60% down to their second choice, and then you'd redistribute them into the other candidates that aren't the hated guy, and you'd keep doing that until there were only 2 left and one of them held the majority. So like it's possible for the most popular candidate to not win, as long as by most popular you're not implying that he got over 50%. I think it's an interesting system. I'm interested in this stuff.
Yeah, I think it is too.
I've been talking about it for I don't know how long now, but I think we're probably kind of with the time. So do you have anything else to add?
No, not at all. Just if you're interested in this stuff, get more informed on it. If you're not, then don't. I don't know.
If you're on YouTube watching us do this, then subscribe, hit the bell notification button thing,
like button, all that stuff. We love it. Thank you.
Everybody on YouTube tells you to do. Comment, everything. Engage, be active, be social, be cool.
We would love if you did.
If you're not watching this on YouTube, if you listen to us on, I know we have listeners on Apple. I know we have listeners on Google. I know we have listeners on Spotify. I know we have maybe 1 or 2 listeners on Anchor. And like a whole bunch on other. We actually have more listeners than I thought we were going to, like this early on.
That's fantastic.
But yeah, if you're on those things, just make sure to subscribe to the podcast. Feel free to check out the YouTube channel and all that good stuff. I don't know if if you're on Anchor, you can there's like an applause button and stuff like that you can applaud our episodes and stuff. But if you're on like a normal podcasting app that you get with your phone, like Apple or Google, or Spotify, then that's cool too. Just subscribe. That's very cool. All right, I'm ready to sign off. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all that good stuff. And we'll see you guys next time.